Okay. So this video is a personal astrology, real life astrology video. Um, that is not based on astrological fact, but it does have some combinations in it because I thought that progressed Saturn in astrology changes signs every 7 years, but I found out that I was wrong about that. However, what I am not wrong about in myself is that I have felt a change, that I felt a shift in my life, that I felt shifts in my life. And I want to discuss as if progressed Saturn changed signs every 7 years. And this video is also saying, well, my Jupiter in Virgo, I really felt my Jupiter in Virgo very, very strongly the past 7 years, very strong. Which I made a whole podcast episode about going in depth on the real meaning of Jupiter and Virgo. I shared some stuff. But this video is more specific to my personal experience over from 2019 up until now and what those years were like. So I want to share that experience. The first 7 years of my life, um, from ages 0 to 7, were very Cancerian years. My Saturn's in Cancer. I was very much, at home. I was very much connected to family. I was very shy. I was very introverted, just like Cancer. I was very emotionally sensitive and tender. I'm very connected with home. I didn't want to go out in public very much. I wanted to be with him. Like I was very attached to family. And I think there's something about being born, um, something about being born, um, when you become a kid and you start in the elements as you grow older. So you start for some of the years in your life in water. You're very emotional, you're very um, sensitive and all those kind of things like that. Then you move to air, you start asking questions, you start researching, you start looking at how others see me in relationships. You think about being a teenager. You start to become more open-minded. Then Earth comes in your 40s or something like that to probably the bulk of your life, um the better part of your life. Earth comes in. It's like we got to make a list, we got to make a schedule. We're getting grounded, we're getting connected to the Earth. We are all about details and organization. We're all about what goals can we achieve and how are we going to achieve it in a pragmatic way. And then at the very, very end of your life, Saturn comes in to the fire element in your life. And I have to give credit to this I learned this from Deborah Silverman. It was the very, very first astrologer that I studied under, in her video. In one of her conversations, she was talking about, I think it was with Stormy Gray, she was talking about the Saturn changes through elements. And in fire, you're like, I'm retired now. I can go on vacations. I have all this free time. I'm really enjoying life. Like, it's very wise. It's very Sagittarius. It's very fun. You feel energetic. You feel alive. You feel very free to be yourself. Not so wrapped up in what others think of you, but just very energetic. Probably there's some passion that comes in with that, but this is very, very interesting to me. Very interesting because as you get older, your body weakens, and so you'd think it would be younger. And I have my own opinions on this, but I just found that very Interesting. And right now I am currently in air. Now, I did hear mentioning that Deborah Silverman said about something about the progressed Saturn changing signs every 7 years. I looked it up. Sure enough, I was wrong. However, it it kind of makes sense in my life with the themes of my life. And I want to paint this picture of 2019 to up to now and how difficult those years were for me in my life and how strongly I felt my Jupiter in Virgo. So the first 7 years of my life, very Cancerian. Then when I turned seven up until 15 years old, maybe 16 years old, I'm thinking, like I would say 7 to 16, I was very, very different. I was incredibly creative, as you would be as a child. So it doesn't surprise me. Like, it just seems like, is this real? Because it just seems so typical as a kid that you're so creative and all this. Like, you're having fun. You're a kid. You're doing all this. So I was kind of skeptical about, is this real? Sure enough, it's not. But I'm just painting a picture of my life as if it were an astrological fact. Because I think that it makes sense with my life specifically. So I was very, very creative. I made thousands upon thousands of videos, a lot of which I deleted because I felt that they were imperfect. Um, I had an invention that I started, which was a basically an invention is a thing that I came up with where it's like I have a whole story to it and I have a whole oracle deck that I'm basing around it. Maybe I should do a whole podcast on that whole idea of it meant to explain to you the whole, backstory behind it and what my ideas are. Maybe if I feel ever so inspired, but I don't want to burn myself out with that. Basically, an invention is where you invite guests in and you honor them and there's all these ways of like going trips and singing songs and doing all these kind of things and honoring them. And a huge part of it was teaching. So it was very, very much um involved with teaching, like pretending to teach, pretending to be a teacher, coming up with all these voices, coming up with all these characters, um, and also acting. I became like 2015. I started doing that. I started creativity involved like cooking videos, but I started acting, playing all these roles, pretending to get mad, pretending to create all these different scenes, situations, all these very, very dramatic roles where I feel like I strained my voice and my ears sometimes because I was playing around. I wasn't consciously aware of those things yet. And I was doing all that. But beyond that, as a kid, you go through growing pains. And so I find that this to be a very typical thing about life, which was why I was slightly skeptical. And sure enough, good thing I looked it up before doing this video because I would say something and then I was like, oh, wait, I'm totally wrong about that. So my intuition told me, look this up. I did. Sure enough, I was wrong. But anyway, there was a lot of drama. As you go through a kid, there's a lot of drama. I was um, very easy to get angry. I wanted everything to about myself. Nobody could do things without my permission. I acted up. I had through temper tantrums, if you could call it. There was one day in the summer of 2016 when I had my quote unquote Breast Saturn in Leo, which is not true, but I'm just going to call it that because it's just what the astrological name for this period in my life. Um, so there was one day in the summer of 2016 that I remember, and there were several episodes of this where I got angry and I acted up, but I provoked things and or others provoked things. Very, very rarely did that happen though, but some argument happened and I was very, very dramatic and at worst very self-centered, and I want to use that word in this context as a negative. But during that Jupiter and Virgo time return in 2016, when I was still having this whole lot of Leo energy in my chart, I went to it was with my family. We went to Culver's for lunch. If you're not familiar with that, it's like a Midwestern thing um that serves like fried shrimp and I think butterburgers and all this kind of things like that. Even we went there and I just got the same thing that I always got, and it was like my intuition kind of told me when my grandma suggested, let's go to Culver's for lunch, and we were going to go golfing that day. It was an outing to like St. Joe in Missouri, where my grandma lives in Maryville, Missouri, of which I'm there now. So it's so perfect that I should be talking about this. She said, let's go to Culver's. A small part of me was like, I'm a little skeptical of that, but I was like, oh, sure, let's do it. Sure enough, I went there. I had a fit about the food. I didn't like the food for some reason. I complained about the food, and then I just started acting up and complaining and becoming very critical and using my Leo energy growing pains slash Jupiter and Virgo at the time of me as a kid, like how you expressed your Jupiter and Virgo through you being a kid through being, an adult or whatever. So I had a fit about the food. We had an argument about it in the car, and my dad was giving me a lecture about how I was embarrassing others, and a small part of me did feel embarrassed about, those kind of things like that, and about, doing it in front of public. And so then we went to several other places, and I became very, very, um, just very argumentative, just throwing a fit, very much, um, angry, and kind of having a meltdown, a complete and utter meltdown that particular day in like 2016. And I was 12 at the time. Like this whole anger thing lasted. I want to say it ended 2014. That was the last gasp of it. 2014, or excuse me, 2018, when I was 14 years old. That was the very, very end of it. But 2016 definitely, the years prior up to that definitely, as a kid, it's very, very typical. But I just remember this one experience in 2016 where I was acting up. We didn't end up going to golfing because I was acting up. And I remember going home and I remember my grandma saying very, very specifically, that was very unfun. Like I remember her saying that very, very specifically. Um, and so then I felt, very, very guilty for that. And I felt really bad about that. And that I let it get the better of me. And that looking back, I didn't just go to another place or just look at the big picture because this was my Jupiter and Virgo, getting caught in the little details. And I express that in a Jupiter-like way. Like if I just looked at the bigger picture, I would say, oh, this food is only one small aspect of what we're doing. There's also the golfing. Like this is not the end of the world. Looking back, if my small self were listening to this, it would be mad. It would be provoked in anger. Looking back, however, I was so caught in the details and so nitpicky, expressing the shadow over critical, and I expressed that in very childlike ways. So my Jupiter and Virgo did show up during this Leo period of my life. And then it showed up in a more mature form, in a more young adult form, these 7 years, which I'm going to, get into. So that was that period of my life, and I just felt like I couldn't have an off button sometimes. Like I felt really, really good. I acted on all these ideas. I just felt like it was too much sometimes, like I couldn't settle down. I couldn't just be. A small part of me felt that way. And there's just this anger happening, this anger, these arguments all the time. And it's like I just want to react and I just want to be my authentic self with expressing all this anger that I have and energy that I have. But I want an off button to this. Like there was a very, very small part of me that was like, this is too much. And then I want to get into the heart of what I want to talk about on this video, on this podcast, which is these 7 years from 2019 to now, and how brutal these years were. 2019, I just started to feel it on my, you know, kind of got initiated on my 15th birthday when I thought that my progressed Saturn changes signs. And at the time, before it, before this time in 2018, I was very, very into reading. I was very into books, but I burnt myself out because of it. I have a whole post about not finishing things and how you know, I think I talk about how I read and I was so enthusiastic about reading, but at the end of 2018, I really burnt myself out, like having expectations, like that I need to feel the perfect way about this. I got in my head about it. I read too much without taking breaks, without exploring other interests. Instead, now I'm way wiser about that now, and it's now become, well, you're letting other things consume your life, and you need to balance that out with other things that you enjoy doing. So now it's the opposite. So it's a balance that I'm trying to figure out in my life, and it was kind of always that. So I was reading, I was really, really into that. I did burn myself out because of it. 2019 happened, and I started losing interest in reading. I started starting books without finishing them. I didn't read very many books in 2019. And I just started my critical period of not finishing books. That was the first issue of this whole thing, which was not as big as the other issue. And it was a drop in the bucket. It was so, looking back, it was just so minor, but I made it so big at the time. It just felt so huge. And I have to honor how I felt at the time because how you feel at the time is how you feel at the time. 2019, I kind of didn't feel it all that much. I was kind of in my head, suffered through depression and getting in a rut in my head and getting trapped in my head over that summer. It was a rough period in August that summer, which was really rough. And in the fall, it kind of I got in my head again, like late October, etc. 2020, when COVID hit, when I was really it was a very, very good time in my life, actually. But it did give me some more time to reflect and go introspective. And this was where, um, I started to really, really get down on myself about all of the books that I did not finish. Like I was so wrapped up in these books that I didn't finish because I felt impure. I couldn't watch a video and just be innocent because I would feel like, why do I have to what's the point of finishing this video and totally investing my mental energy and attention in this video if I didn't finish other content, other books that I did not finish? So there were a lot of books that I didn't finish, and I was kind of starting to finish them in like 2021, etc. Um, and I was, very, very guilty about that. And I was because COVID you're stuck at home. You're stuck you can't really, really get out. And I had all these books, um, in my bookshelf that I was looking at, and I looked at my bookshelf feeling guilty for all these books I did finish. I ended up covering a thing over my bookshelf so I didn't have to look at them. And then 2021, I gave a lot of those books away, but but I was just so stuck. I think Jupiter and Capricorn and the Saturn Capricorn and the Pluto Capricorn energy at the time was keeping me stuck in the old feeling of the books not being finished. And then I could feel the shift of Aquarius because that next year in 2021, I felt so free and liberated. But I do want to mention that 2020 was brutal for that reason and only that reason. Besides that, I had a very, very good year in 2020. I was very creative. I could do my menton, I could do my videos, I could do other things that I remember. I could watch videos on YouTube. Like I could do all these things in 2020 that I could not do when I was in school. I remember having a very like a quote unquote spiritual awakening end of July 2020, which wasn't really a spiritual awakening. It was just an idea in my head of a spiritual awakening. They didn't do deep spiritual work. I didn't even have oracle cards at the time. Um, and yeah, so I have a whole video discussing why Paula Baron Reed's oracle cards are unique, and I get into some truths about oracle cards in that video. It kind of goes off that question a little bit because that's what I could find on. Stop right there. I'm not going to deplete the power of my videos. Okay, so all right. Now, I had a mini spiritual awakening. I suddenly had some self-compassion, like, no, this is not the end of the world that I didn't finish these books. I'm actually okay with not finishing these books. There's other things like I was getting into Call It Baron Reed, her spirituality. I was finishing up some stories that I didn't finish, but I just remember late afternoon going on my, electric scooter, going towards the tree and then just turning around immediately after that, like feeling like kind of relieved, like I wasn't stuck in the um, you know, it's kind of like a break in an oasis before going back into the desert again, not feeling like um I was so stuck in the not finishing the books and everything like that. Um and then into the fall I felt more guilty about that. I felt very, very stuck in that. 2021, I do remember, because of, this whole reading thing where I became very, very obsessive about it needing to be perfect, needing to read it a certain way, needing to understand every little detail, needing to imagine things perfectly, needing to have voices and looks to every character, like everything like that. Um, I I read a fiction book which was the Pearl or something like by John Steinbeck, by this the how I remember something about a pearl. Let me yeah something about I actually have my screen shared right now, and I'm going to be real about this because I'm going to just look this up. Just going to put in the name of the book, John Steinbeck Pearl, just because I can. The Pearl. It's very, very simple. The Pearl. I had a book about a family in like Mexico or something that has a kid suffered by a scorpion. There's all these funny things. It's a very, very short book. Anyway, with this book, I was being very, very critical with myself when I was reading it. I couldn't just enjoy it. I was very, very caught up in, oh, this needs to be perfect and reading it in a certain way. And I was getting so caught up in my head about it. Like reading became a perfectionistic thing as opposed to something that you just enjoy doing for fun and all that kind of thing, which I think it is now. I'm kind of taking a break from that because I've been so consumed with other things. But I made reading into something more sustainable now, better now. And at the time I made reading into something so difficult and like so I during the really tough years I could have read a lot of books, but because I created all this anxiety of reading. And that was one of the last things that I thought to do during the really tough years and that I wanted to do So I read the book, I started it over again. I ended up finishing the book, and how I finished books is by reading them aloud. Like when I read them aloud, I couldn't um, focus on the actual story because I was reading it aloud. Like, that was my way to say, okay, I'm finishing books without actually sitting down and reading them. Of course, I don't finish books to finish books now. I don't read books to just finish them, you know, just for the sake of finishing them. 2021 was pretty good that summer. I don't remember being too critical of myself. It was kind of some of the same issues, very, very minor. It was a good year. There were a lot of things about that year. I know fall of that year was tough. I had um, colon issues. Like my stomach really hurt one day. I went to the hospital because of it, um, and then I ended up having an operation in December, which was brutal. I had a tube up my nose, and it was tough. I wrote a whole personal narrative in my composition class about it. It was really, really tough, but it was, I think, easier and definitely faster than the recent hospital experience that I had. What do you like? What do you like? Like you're given a choice, like a lot of discomfort in a short amount of time, or not a whole lot of discomfort, maybe a little bit over a long period of time, but still it's not ideal and you're stuck in a place. And it's like, would you rather have being in a hospital, being very, very uncomfortable for like a few days, or being in a prison, not having a tube up your nose, not having all that for like 2 weeks or a year or whatever? What would you choose? Looking back, I would say the difficult hospital experience because now, back in December of 2021, because I trust, oh, this is not going to last too long. It's just a couple of days. I can hold on. I can find things to get through this. Like looking back, um, it was bad, but at least it didn't last very long. That's what I can say about it. But a lot of things I was unprepared for that. Anyway, I don't want to go off on that. Um, so then 2022 happened. First half of the year was fine. I didn't really notice that I was into making astrology videos on my first YouTube channel that I produced public videos on. I had accounts that I deleted before then for reasons that I look back and go, I should have kept those channels, should have kept those accounts. But oh well, I did what I did. I have to have compassion and understanding for myself and just live in the now and move on. Then, um, then what started happening, and I want to actually jump to May of 2022. May of 2022 was when the Mercury retrograde in Gemini happened. It was really, really tough. That was the only Mercury retrograde in my life where I was really feeling it. And I was very, very frustrated with it. The others are just, ah, not a big deal. I'm not affected by this. Just this one Mercury retrograde just was a doozy to me, um, and I'm really anxious for Mercury retrograde in Gemini again in 2028. The 2021 Mercury retrograde in Gemini wasn't that bad. But this one in 2022 was really, really bad because I was getting so caught up in my head, so frantic and so anxious about when my computer was going to arrive, so scattered, not organized. Well, I could think clearly, like there was a lot of issues going on with this Mercury retrograde that was really messing with my life for like the Gemini part of it. From May 10 to um May 22nd, those days were tough for me. Some of the days were not so tough that I remember. Some of the days like really stood out, that were really tough. I know May 11th was really, really tough. And May 22nd, the day I graduated high school, that Sunday, was tough. Was really, really tough. I don't want to get into that here because it's kind of off topic, but I do want to say I started to become very, very critical about my computer when I got my computer that I got for high school. And I got it, and my mom ordered it just as Mercury was stationing to go retrograde the day before goes retrograde. And that is probably, don't buy a computer during Mercury retrograde if you can handle it, but definitely not during the station of Mercury retrograde, because during the station of Mercury retrograde, things can break down. There's technical difficulties, just the glitches, technology breaks down, there's miscommunications, like all this Mercury retrograde effects you feel during that first, couple of days as Mercury is stationing to go retrograde. It's like just as you were to go on a plane, you feel your ears popping, you feel the altitude change, and then when you get up into the altitude and you get used to it, like, oh, like I'm used to it now. Like during the Mercury retrograde period, we're used to it. Like, yes, there's miscommunications during it, and yes, there's difficult things during it, but that station was really, really hard. So, if anything, wait till the Taurus part of the retrograde to get the computer during the latter half of May, if anything, and get it then. But my mom got it, I thought, get it before the Mercury retrograde, before Mercury turns retrograde. But now I realize, oh, Mercury was stationing. And now I understand the effects that Mercury has when it's standing still in the sky. And so, sure enough, when I got the computer, it was a great computer, a lot of nice features, but I couldn't enjoy it because I got off in the smallest details because I was in my head. A drop of sanitizer. This was how the OCD the spark of OCD started. A drop of sanitizer from my hand fell on the touchpad of the computer. And then I got anxious, like the computer is not clean, the computer is impure now, the computer is tainted. And so I tried to just push that aside and not let, I'm gonna slow down. I'm gonna push that aside. So there's a lot of things I want to get through here in this video. Pushing that aside, not letting it get to me, not letting this get to me. Um, and pretending to just, ignore it and then, move on and be present, but I couldn't get it out of my head. Try as I might, it just stuck with me. It was like glue. And I did enjoy the computer, but I just had this, it was like this feeling like it was like I was enjoying it, but I felt a discomfort using it. Like I felt a guilt and discomfort using it. Like I couldn't just relax and couldn't just be with the computer and enjoy using it. There was this tense, tight, um, frustrated energy with using this computer. Um, and maybe a couple other things happened, with the computer. I just got off on that and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I was so wrapped up in the guilt of that. And I was so in my head, Mercury and Gemini, were very wrapped up in your head, very wrapped up in your thoughts. I didn't have a clarity of my thoughts when Mercury was retrograde in Gemini, with that computer, which lasted me 2 years. It, it finally had issues 2024, then fall was like, I need a new computer. So the one I have now is the one I got in October 2024. Um, anyway, I had the computer, then I got the phone in June, and well, I got off in that too. I was eating a dessert, like a pie or something, and I had my phone. Like I thought, it's so natural to me to hold my phone while eating dessert. Of course, I don't really do that now anymore. I had my phone, like still eat my with my computer. Like I couldn't eat around my computer. I couldn't do any of that. Now I think I can. There's more freedom in that, and I feel way more relaxed around both technologies. But so anyway, um, I was eating dessert. I got off on, you know, did the dessert touch my phone? This was how the OCD started. Like 2022 is when the OCD began. This was the beginning of OCD in my life. How it started with getting worried, like, what if my dessert touched my phone? And I was obsessed over that. And I was talking to my mom about it, and I was just obsessive and anxious, and she actually took my phone and made it dirty and then showed me that you could actually clean it and get the dirtiness off. And then I became very, very anxious, and then I felt guilty for even bothering her into it. Like sometimes we're having conversations and she does things which are extreme and unexpected, and then I feel guilty, like, wow, I shouldn't have brought this up. I should have gone to this conversation. Like that's how it is sometimes, and that's one of the negative things about the dynamics that I do have to say that I do feel comfortable mentioning in this video, and I hope that I do not have dream after dream about it. Um, where there is these things where it's just like the unexpected happens, and it's just, I'm just shocked by it, and then I feel guilty. So I just want to leave it at that. So then I got obsessive about my phone. I couldn't enjoy using it because I wanted to save the battery power, and I was worried that the phone was going to break down, and I wanted the phone to be new, 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 and pure, pure, pure. Okay. So then fast forward to the summer of 2022. This is when it kind of, really set in a little bit. I started getting obsessed. I just started getting obsessed about wiping my rear end. I'm sorry to be graphic, and I'm sorry to be, inappropriate with you, but this is the real issue of OCD that I've been dealing with throughout the whole experience. And I want to really delve into these issues one by one in this video. So this is going to be a long, in-depth video. So get prepared, get cozy, get comfortable. This is going to be long. So I started in the summer, wiping myself, getting obsessed about how clean I was, and specifically checking my underwear to see if it was clean or not. Like, like just checking, like leaning down and then checking. Like every time I were to go into the restroom, there was this ritual where I had to check my, this the whole 2022, 2022, 2023, checking my underwear first, leaning down, checking very, very carefully, looking at all parts of it, making sure that all parts of it were clean. Um, Wiping to see if everything was clean. I had to analyze every speck of that wipe that I was using to see if it was clean or not. Um, and turn it over, do all that, really analyze it before determining if it was clean or not. Like, is that a normal thing to do? Now, I know if it's clean or not. Like, but that's the truth of it. Okay, that's the truth, and that's me spelling out the truth. And this is a real podcast. And honestly, my progressive moon being in Leo now, and being an Aries sun, I'm not afraid to be my authentic self on social media. Like, the differences between Aries and Leo, I prefer Aries. Because Leo can get so caught up in what others think and validation, and be so concerned with image and restricting itself because of others think, and becoming very shy and self-conscious. Aries is like, I don't care what you think. I'm expressing my authentic self, and I want to put myself out there without caring what the audience thinks. And I'm like, that's how I want to live my life. Like my dad is very concerned with image and all that, and he is a Leo sun, Mercury in Leo, thinks in this kind of ways like that. I do not have any Leo in my chart whatsoever in any business, trade, or corporation or in astrological significance. And I don't wish I had Leo in my chart. Like I'm really interested in the energy of Leo, and I think there's a lot to delve into the Leo. But I'm glad I don't have a lot of it in my chart. I'm glad I just don't have that dynamic in my chart, because then I would take social media way too seriously. And thank goodness I have every other energy in my chart where it's not like the Leo self-conscious energy. So I feel very fortunate to not have that energy in my chart. It in that respect. Of course, there's a lot of good qualities to Leo, like being connected to your heart, creativity. But anyway, getting off on that. So I just wanted to clarify that. So I got obsessed about this whole wiping situation this summer. Continued on in the fall. I became more obsessed by it. Um there's some details that I just want to not go into about this, but you get the point of the issue. And you get the point that I was using, um, like this is a touchy episode right here and now. Like like I'm sorry to be, really graphic here and inappropriate, but this is the naked truth of it. And this was the really, really big issue. I used, wipes at the time, and I was very obsessed about it. Into the fall, continued 2022, my progressing into cancer. I became very, very, regretful about that. And the OCD thing continued with not being able to go places or do things without checking myself first and having to constantly feel like I need to go into the restroom and check because I would be anxious, like, what if something was down here and something was dirty. This manifested from 2017 when I first had something unpleasant happen. From then on, kind of took a break in 2018, 2019, but then it came back 2022 really, really strong, like more severe, more anxiety provoking. But beyond that whole issue of OCD that I was getting caught in very Virgo judgmental qualities of myself, there was another issue that I was getting caught up into, and honestly, I wish that I wasn't caught up in this. I was only caught up in the OCD of the wiping and all that stuff because if this other issue wasn't going on, it would make it easier. It would really, really make it easier, and I would be able to be vulnerable about the emotions. I would be able to find outlets. It was tough for me. Like these years, 2022 to 2024, rough, rough, rough. Not only because of the OCD it eased off in 2024, but also in 2022, I binge watched, and I fell on my scooter and I worried that I broke my phone June 2022. I just want to throw that in there. I watched, I binge watched videos just because I wanted to get them done. I wanted to see all the videos. I wanted to experience how that felt. Felt guilty for that because I, ruined the just enjoyment of the videos when I wanted to see the videos. And then not only that, but July, it was like, and this is what really, really provoked this guilt and this criticism. I thought to myself, well, I have so many subscriptions, I need to go through them and see which subscriptions I want to keep and which ones I don't. And I want to see the videos of the subscriptions to determine that because I subscribe to a lot of things without seeing the videos. I still have subscriptions on them that I haven't seen videos of the uh, of those subscriptions on YouTube. On YouTube, I had YouTube subscriptions, and I had an approach. I had an idea. I was very obsessed about it, but it was not the right approach. Because what I did was I sat in front of the computer downstairs, my dad's computer. I and I want to throw in there that and also I totally forgot about this, which I have to write these issues down because I'm going to. I think I'll remember that. I may not get to every like. There's multiple, like there's three issues going on at the same time. Like there's three big things going on at the same time. So it's a lot. So this is going to be long and long, very, very long. So just be prepared. So I was going through my subscriptions, um, and I thought, I was going through them and I was sampling them. Like I was channel surfing. I was watching a little. I clicked on one subscription. I clicked on a video, watched just a little part of that video to determine if I wanted to keep it or not. Clicked on another channel, clicked on a video, clicked on another part of that video. Like these are the channels that I didn't watch before, and I did that in a very Scorpio South Node extreme. Like I gotta get this done. I gotta get this all done now today very obsessive instead of doing the Taurus North Node thing, taking breaks, slowing down, and being very considering your decisions before acting on them and being very patient throughout the whole process. Like I'm learning patience as well. That's one of the Taurus North Node lessons. Also, redundant, but anyway, my speech when I said that. And so I was doing that and I impurified, and I feel like I distorted and tainted my interest, and I ruined my interest and enthusiasm and enjoyment of YouTube channels and videos on YouTube, which was a huge value to me because I didn't have very much. That was my, that was a huge part of what I was engaged with. Of course, now I have all these other subscriptions that I have that I will get back into watching now. So, um, but anyway, that was, it became a very, very huge issue. And because of that, I felt really, really impure because of it. Um, and I felt guilty since I that everybody else was living a more pure life. Everybody else was living a life where they didn't do this and they didn't go through the subscriptions as like I did, and they were living a more pure life with enjoying YouTube and not, burning themselves out and purifying the subscriptions. Like it just impurified me. It just really, really um just just really, really I I just became very, very guilty with this and judging myself internally for this. And so when I made that Jupiter and Virgo video, I was really basing it off of these 7 years of what happened. That was, where it was coming from, so you can understand the root of where this was coming from with my Jupiter and Virgo. So I didn't go in depth on it in that video, but I want to talk about it here on this podcast because it's very, very personal to me. And Jupiter and Virgo is something I feel really strongly about. It's very personal to me in my life. Not so much my other placements in my chart. My North and Taurus is kind of another placement like that. But anyway, um, okay. So, what was I saying? So I got guilty about doing this. It's like your curiosity for discovering new subscriptions and new videos is tainted. And when you think about new videos and when you think about new channels, all you can remember is channel surfing. Like when you're channel surfing, you're not investing yourself in one video, you're not slowing down, focusing in on it, you're just spreading yourself out too thin. Very, very Gemini shadow, starting one thing and not investing into it, starting another thing, not investing into it, and and doing all these things, and then not, really, just slowing down and really enjoying something, really just um being with it all that much. Um, so I got really, really guilty about that. I went to classes at DMAC that fall. I couldn't enjoy those classes. But beyond that, summer of 2021, the thing I forgot to mention, August 29, 2021, Sunday, I remember having this idea that I wanted to delete videos from months and years off of one account that I had on YouTube. Like this goes back to the fall of 2020, and I made a lot of videos, a lot of live streams, a lot of shorts, a lot of videos of my imagined and pretend stuff and some astrology videos that I made that were pretend. Like there was a lot of videos that were really, really valuable to me, and I didn't think through how valuable they were. And I didn't think through, wait, I should keep these videos. I should hold on to these videos. I should not just get rid of these videos all of a sudden. But what did I do? I deleted the videos. Just all of a sudden, just all of a sudden that day, very, very impulsively just deleted the whole channel. That's very, very Scorpio South Node of me thing to do. Very Scorpio South Node. Taking one piece of something and just saying, I'm not going to save this, I'm not going to think this through. It just goes right in head first, kind of like Aries energy does. It just goes extreme and just deletes the whole, tears down the whole house. It can burn down the whole house if it wants to. Like the thing about Scorpio that I learned from my life is it is kind of an impulsive energy. It is impulsive because when you're impulsive, you're so extreme with what you want to do, and you're so driven and you're so obsessed about it that you're not slowing down, and you're not thinking, wait, I should slow down. I should think about my actions. I should save this. I should take my time. I should um consider what I do before I do it. Like Scorpio is at the low level impulsive and obsessive. So that's what I turn into, guilt from that, although it didn't really bother me until summer of 2022 when I deleted videos off of my account. Again, these were more valuable because I was more my real self and I wasn't just playing around. I was expressing my true feelings to my mention, as I called it, in pretend live streams. I was expressing my truth and doing all these kind of things. Like again, more valuable videos that I deleted one by one by one. And as I did it, as part of me felt guilty for doing this. And and y- you know, and it's like if I delete just one, I have to delete them all. Like my moon in Libra kind of naturally needs that balance. Like if I delete one video, I can't just delete some videos and leave some up there. I have to delete the whole thing of these certain type of videos. Like I just otherwise I feel really insecure. Otherwise I feel really off kilter, very off balance, really unbalanced if I don't have things balanced. Like if I don't update my social media, one account for social medias, I feel imbalanced. I want to keep all four of them balanced and updated in the same way. At the same time, I don't want to leave one leaving behind and neglect to post on one. Like balance is very, very important to me as a deep emotional need because of my moon and Libra. It's huge. It's very, very huge. The guilt of deleting videos did not really set in until the fall. That's when I really started feeling it as soon as my progressive moon hit Cancer. It was like I'm in the emotions now. I'm numb to my emotions. I thought I would be very home at home, very, very comforted, um, feeling very emotionally tender, feeling very emotionally warm, and feeling very emotionally sensitive in good ways. Like I was looking forward to the emotion because I felt detached from my previous Gemini, um, you know, progressive moon because I was feeling so detached. I felt like I wasn't emotional enough. I wasn't feeling enough and I wasn't empathizing enough. And I was looking forward to this Cancer moon because finally I can bring in the water element of this. But honestly, that moon in Gemini was better than the moon in Cancer. Because during that whole moon in Cancer period, I was so depressed. I was very, very down on myself. Throughout the whole fall of 2022, and I was getting into OCD and then washing my hands and then getting my hands cracked to then 2023. The regret of the video deleting and the purification of the channels kind of took a back burner because of the OCD um, of the wiping. My hands were getting really, really cracked and my skin was getting very, very raw. And I was just so obsessed with that. It took hours for me to take care of myself in the restroom. Like 2023, the year of OCD, like that rhymes, and that's, the real truth of it. Um, and you know, And the thing I should mention also about 2023 was this fear of, I was very, very constipated. Like I was on Cinnamon, I was on these, I have to be on medications to get myself to go to the restroom on a regular basis because my body is very, very stubborn, very, very slow. It does not go normally. I just cannot go normally like a normal person. I have to be on all these stimulants to get me to go to the restroom. So I was on, all these stimulants, and I went every, couple of days, and it was a long process to take care of myself in the restroom, which really was a huge thing about the OCD. And part of me was very anal retentive, if that's the word to use, and very rejecting of, very resistant to all that wiping and all that taking care of it because of how long and how time consuming and how difficult it would be. And then I was constipated as a result. I kept myself that way, especially into August, September of that year. May of that year, tough. From May the 13th through May 21st to, I would say, even May 24th, those days, those weeks were tough. I got off the Senna because you couldn't have it because it's not good for a long term because you become addicted to it. So I got on um um I got on another medication that would be like more of a stimulant to go to the restroom. And I was on a dosage that was not right for me because it was not enough to get me to go to the restroom. And then what happened was I was on this and I just felt this need to, like, it's so frustrating to me when I feel this very, very strong urge and then it doesn't happen because I felt very, very strong sensations like very, very in my body, but I couldn't go to the restroom. I could not do it. And it wasn't strong enough. And I became more and more constipated the more I ate, the more the days went on. Um, and Then May 18th was when I really started becoming frustrated with it because I started noting the unpleasantness that came out of me. I wanted to say, um, that I had to take care of. Can you figure out what I'm referring to? Because I was so constipated, because I was so full. May 20th, that was a really tough day because that was when it all came to a head. I finally gotten this new dosage. My body with all that I was so constipated with, and I just felt so full. And I sat down, and then stuff, came out of me, and I just felt this urge to go to the restroom, but it wasn't coming out. Um, and my stomach was hurting, and it was a miserable day, a miserable, miserable day. And that was the day of the fixed granite cross that was so tough in 2023. And that fixed square energy did not make it an easy day. The good part about it is that you have the will to keep going, but I think that fixed T square and what was going on was just so appropriate because that was a tough period in May astrologically. And for me, it was a tough period, May 18th through 20th, really, really tough days, were the toughest 3 days of it all for me. I mean, so then, that happened, and I became very, very traumatized with the whole, wiping and all that kind of stuff. And then summer kind of continued, you know, just kind of same old, same old. Became very obsessive about cleaning my phone and computer also as well. It became another obsession. Um, you know, fall of 2023, I had a meltdown one day. I went home and I felt very, very constipated when I was at DMAC and I needed to go home and take care of it. I went home and, said, and I woke up in the middle of the night, late August 2023, and then felt it was also very, very constipated then. And then it was very, very distraught, had a meltdown, Um, and well, stuff was coming out of me, and I was shocked and surprised by it. And I was really, really upset, and I was very um, angry about it and devastated about it, and just I was freaking out. I was freaking out that night. I was freaking out that day when I came home from DMAC. So I sat on there, stuff came out, and then, well, I had to, continually take care of it. And of course, I just give up. Like, no, there was nobody home with me. I was all alone. I was trapped in the restroom. I could get out of the restroom, like I wasn't locked inside of it. Like I was trapped in there by my own issues that I had physically. And I was so resistant to go to the restroom because of all that typing that I had to do. And so it was just getting like, this is not sustainable. This is not working out for me anymore. Um, so then I was just crying. I was just so upset, and I was just like in tears. I was just so I was just in the depths of despair, in the depths of despair. And so things got taken care of, eventually, with that. But they kind of continued into, fall of 2023, and the whole issue of, the whole thing with the other issues that caused me to withdraw from DMAC, and it continued on from then. I became very, very critical of myself. Like, I found that in August, like, I'm not critical of myself over the deleting videos and over the uh, channel surfing. I was just so consumed with the OCD, and I was judging like OCD is perfectionism and rituals, and being concerned with your health and your body. Like that was a huge part of it. That's very Virgo energy. And that's one of the shadows of Virgo, is one of the shadow manifestations of Virgo is OCD. It's not the shadow of Virgo, but it could be a manifestation of the shadow of Virgo. The shadow of Virgo is perfectionism, being very detail oriented. Like just to say OCD is the shadow of Virgo is just kind of narrow. It could be, but it's not the only thing. It's just something that could come out of that. So I want to clarify that. So, that was really, really tough. Into 2024, the last year that this happened, um, of this, um, uh, the OCD became better because, and here's the reason why, I got a bidet. Thank goodness. It could take care of it without me having to do all that work. Thank goodness. This was a blessing to me in my life. Made life so much easier. I was so more inclined to go to the restroom. So I got this, and the OCD got better. The voice started. I discussed that on another video. And then in the summer of 2024, it all came to a head. All the regret that I repressed from the guilt of deleting videos and the impurification that I caused myself and the disinterest and the disenjoyment and the lack of feeling of contentment and abundance for like I felt discontent and the lack of contentment for the videos that I was watching on YouTube and the videos that I still had. Like, what's the point of still enjoying the videos that I have if I deleted all those valuable videos? All that guilt from channel surfing, deleting videos just came to a head in that summer, and I felt depressed. I was just so depressed. So depressed, I actually wished, and this is the naked truth of it, that I could kill myself and start another life. Like I was that depressed. Thank goodness I didn't do that for starters, that I didn't have a plan to do that. Um, I was that depressed. July of 2024, I was on vacation. Aspects of it I couldn't enjoy because I was so stuck in the regrets. Like I was judging myself, stuck in the guilt, stuck in the regrets, stuck in the depression of it. And I was just so in my head about I couldn't be present. I couldn't enjoy life in the here and now. I couldn't enjoy things. I just was just so stuck in all that regret and in the judgment of that. Like that summer was tough for me. Very, very tough. Then I still felt the guilt from that into 2024 and all that. Then final stage of this was the Oracle card stage. So I made a rule with myself. I will not clean my Oracle cards. I was obsessed with that at the time in April. About how pure they are, about how clean they are. Did I touch them? Did I, with my hands not being clean? That was the main issue. How clean that they became. So then 2025, I became very, very obsessed about that. And how, clean they were. And becoming very, like I just overthought. It was the littlest things that I did during these years, the littlest things that I did, like the things that I did, like the smallest things that I did that were wrong, I got in my head about. I became very, very judgmental about myself. Like I naturally took very, very small things and they became really big things in my mind. And I just in my mind created them into these big molehills. Like I took like I had this negative tendency with my Scorpio South node to turn mountains into molehills. Like if I had to write Jen Spiller's book on the shadows of the South node in Scorpio, one of those shadows would be turning mountains into molehills. Like I had the tendency to do that. I I make small things into very, very big deals at worst. Like I just exaggerate things in my mind. That's one of my current shadows that I've been kind of dealing with my whole life. And so I made this very, very big instead of seeing a clarity of it and having a broader perspective of it and having compassion for myself for it. Um, I, 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 I couldn't do that because I was so stuck in it. I was so stuck and bogged down in it. And this was the guild of the Jupiter and Virgo retrograde in my chart. Like it's retrograde. Jupiter and Virgo retrograde is like introspective. You just the whole thing about like you are not a perfect person. That's the message of Jupiter retrograde. You're so stuck in all of your imperfections and all of your issues. You project it out into the world naturally. You criticize others. It's more internal, and I strongly relate to Jupiter Virgo retrograde because I have it. Like that placement's very strong for me in my life, and it's a huge part of my life and my kind of story and who I am. So anyway, that summer was tough. I got into the Oracle cards, became obsessed about cleaning those in 2025, although 2025 was a better year. Um, I wasn't so stuck in the regrets. I was still stuck in the regrets of not of channel surfing and discontentment for those things. And I was in Spirit Jam and I talked to Colette Baron Reed about all of this in October 2024 and she helped it. The thing was, the smallest details I wanted to overthink. And I talked about overthinking a Jupiter and Virgo live stream where um I experienced something, replayed it over and over in my mind to try to experience it perfectly, like to try to feel better about it when I did that in my mind. Um, that's what I did over the little things. Like if something was like if I touched my oracle cards or if I was worried about touching my oracle cards, my oracle deck, like even the outside box of it, like even the box of it with impure hands or unclean hands was OCD at the time. Um, And I think that maybe that getting caught in the regrets and guilt and becoming obsessed about that is also OCD. Maybe, maybe. It's all wrapped around this OCD thing. And I'm going to be vulnerable about this here, and I'm not afraid to open up about that because this is a real podcast about myself and my life. So anyway, um, I'm trying to think, what was I talking about? So, um, the littlest things I became like, what if I got like, well, like this is the thing also. If I got just a centimeter away from something that I valued, like an oracle deck with unclean hands, I am worried, like, did I touch it? Because I was so close to it. I could have touched it. I didn't touch it, but what if I did touch it? Because I was that close to it. Like, that's how my head worked. And I've gotten over that, but it's kind of still lingering in my mind right now, I will admit. That was the anxiety. And then just worried about touching them at all with what I perceived as unclean hands if I wasn't consciously aware. And sometimes during the whole OCD thing, I wasn't consciously aware. Did I wash my hands? Like I can't remember doing this. I did it over and over again. So just like I was like cleaning the decks, like touching them with clean hands. Did I do this? I have to do them over and over again. So I overthought that. I, got into Oracle abuse with my Oracle cards because of that. Like Oracle abuse is like asking the same questions over and over again to Oracle cards, expecting certain answers, and becoming very, very obsessive about getting the right answers from Oracle cards. And I became just asking questions. What do I need to know about overthinking things? It was not yes or no, I learned that. But over and over again, I asked, what do I need to know about overthinking things? I pulled a card, this. And then this tends to like, okay, I wrote in my journal, I'm not going to do it. I overthought things again. I pulled another card. This, yeah, I did it again. What do I need to know about overthinking things? I got this card, and I did it again, and then it wasn't the same card that I pulled. Like I wanted certain cards from certain decks, and I turned to certain decks because I knew that there were certain cards to it. And when I didn't get that card, I would feel really, really bad. I would be very drained by the whole experience. I would be very devastated and kind of betrayed. It's like a friend that doesn't promise you something, or a friend that doesn't, um, is not there for you. Like a friend that doesn't have your back. Like I felt let down and I felt betrayed by the Oracle cards. But that is not how you should be. You shouldn't take it as personally as that. So now I'm like, no, I'm done with Oracle abuse. I'm not continuing to engage in Oracle abuse again. Like, I am done with that. I'm done. So I abused my Oracle decks with that. 2025 was a better year, but I was still depressed. I was still only interested in Oracle cards, not interested in astrology, and I was depressed. And you can probably tell it in my videos that I was very informational, very factual, very, unenthusiastic. If you go watch my videos, it's very almost like I'm presenting a lecture and a presentation on something. And then now the videos couldn't be more interesting and engaging because I'm more interested in astrology than ever. So if you watch my videos now, you will find a difference. You will find a difference, definitely. Now I'm on the other side of it. And only minor things I've been critical about myself. And then now I'm starting to notice different issues that are starting to crop up. Let's just say my progressed Saturn is now going to enter Libra this year. If it were entering Libra on my birthday this year, now I'm starting to notice my relationship, and I'm like, okay, not a big deal. I've survived. I've been through the ringer of all this depression, of all this guilt, of all this criticism. I think I could handle a relationship because I'm so stuck into myself and I'm so concerned with myself and really, really valuing myself that this is not going to be as bad. This is not going to be as bad. But I am noticing some issues in my relationship and some criticisms that are coming up and some things coming up when it comes to relationships, specifically arguments, How am I maintaining the relationships? Like, let's see how this next 7 years pan out. But basically, that is those 7 years that I wanted to cover in this very, very long video because there's several issues going on, and I wanted to get it all out in this one video. This is a big podcast episode. This is one of the more important podcast episodes because this has been in my life. This has been, stuck with me for a long, long time, and this is how I am finally getting it out. Thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.